Welcome to BAM! The show conquering sameness, one platform at a time. The SEO Shadowlands have a new problem. Not just bad advice, advanced bad advice. Because now the monsters have learned new words. They speak in acronyms. They sell the future. They promise visibility in AI search, GEO, and places most business owners barely understand. One claims expertise in GEO before the dust has even settled. The other grabs every win in sight and calls it proof. In the Shadowlands, these monsters are called the GEO Guru and the Credit Snatcher. But not every story in the Shadowlands ends that way. Because when confusion starts to look like expertise, and stolen credit starts to look like performance, the right people step in. By day, they're Gyi Sakalaki and Conrad Sam. But in the SEO Shadowlands, they become Proximus, Defender of Local, and Captain Advocate. One protects the ground where real visibility is earned. The other fights for truth in strategy, proof, and performance. The mission today is simple. How do you tell when an agency is claiming GEO and AI search expertise it has not earned, or taking credit for results it did not create? And who am I, you ask? Well, I'm Bam Man, and this is BAM!
To mess with this city.
BAM!
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 I'm Bam Man, conquering sameness one platform at a time.
BAM!
Before you can beat the monsters, you have to understand the terrain. Because not every new term is fake. And not every agency talking about AI search is bluffing. But in the Shadowlands, hype moves fast. And when a phrase starts spreading before most people even understand what it means, the monsters start circling. Proximus, before we go further, can you break down the difference between SEO, AEO, and GEO in plain English, and why does that distinction even matter now?
So SEO, search engine optimization. You probably heard it and probably have already been hating it. GEO, generative engine optimization. And so this is one of the new baddies. And it is used to describe surfaces, I'll call them surfaces, like ChatGPT and Google's AI mode, and AEO, which is an acronym for Agentic Engine Optimization. I think we're still on the front end of that one, but essentially that agents will be taking action on your behalf. So think about being able to talk to Google and say, book an appointment with the best car accident lawyer near me.
Captain Advocate. What are the clearest signs that an agency is talking confidently about AI search, or GEO, but doesn't actually know what it's doing?
The fact that they're talking confidently tells you that they don't know what they're doing. The answer is in the question. And there are elements to this that are really fascinating. The biggest of which, most digital marketing people grew up in this world where we had this closed loop, right? We knew what we were doing. We knew the result. You could look at what you did. You could see a change in the results, and you could marry those two things together. And it got somewhat complicated, but there was at least a feedback mechanism. There is no feedback mechanism in AI search. And there are a multiplicity of reasons for that. Number one, it is massively personalized. Number two, has a high level of flux, meaning if you look for the same thing at the same time, you will get different answers. And this is not me making stuff up. This has been studied over and over again. You will see different things all of the time. Number three, the seas are shifting under our feet. The sands are shifting. I don't know which metaphor is correct. the topography is moving under our feet at such a fast rate at this point in time that even if I knew what happened yesterday, it may have little to do with what is going on today. And finally, you're not talking, we lived in this world of Google where we were all working, it was all Google all the time. We have 4 or 5, depending on how you want to count it, 7 major LLMs, all which work independently and differently. Okay. And so because there is no feedback mechanism, claiming competency and claiming expertise and saying I've unlocked this, or I know how it works, or we've backdoored the algorithm for this. Reverse engineer. You hear someone say reverse engineer, like just run for the hills, because they haven't.
Run out of the Shadowlands.
Out of the Shadowlands. In Scottish, out of the Shadowlands. It's just not a thing. And so it is because there is no closed loop of information. You can't run multiple, like the people who backdoored SEO or tried to, Rand Fishkins of the world. They were using multivariable testing to try and evaluate how things would function, and they did it on a variety of very different variables, and you could basically distill down what those multiple factors on those variables were to have an impact, right? And you end up with things like links and page count and page speed, like all sorts of things you can feed into this model. There's no results at the end to look at. To like if you did your basic algebra, you have your equation equals x. There's no equals x because we don't know what it is. It's crazy.
I'm going to take my cape off first. I'm going to take my cape off for just a moment, and I'm going to let DM say something. So, you were talking about the different results. I just talked about this recently. I Googled, not Googled. I think it was Google, but it was the AI results from Google.
Okay.
Reviews for my company. Reviews for the Legal Podcast Network. Simple. I can't remember where it was. And you talk about individualized results. My thing said the Legal Podcast Network has great reviews. People say they're fun, they're great, they're wonderful, they're awesome. You should work with them. If you don't, you're a dummy. Like literally, like it was like I wish I could have framed that.
Right.
And then I had someone on my team, actually a different part of the world, and I said, Google this same exact thing. And it said the Legal Podcast Network is most closely associated with the Professional Podcast Network, which, by the way, I don't even know who that is or have anything to do with them. And the Professional Podcast, if it's even a thing, and the Professional Podcast Network has lawyers come on for 5 minutes, and then they try to sell them a $20,000 marketing package based on podcasting. And so these people are extremely unethical. Stay away from them. They are highway robbers. They're going to steal your children. And I was just like, what is even the point anymore? And so when you talk about that individualization, how do you battle it? And I'll give that to either one of you. Maybe you guys can tag team this together. I don't know, but how do businesses battle such individualization that it can literally say they're the best, they're the worst, 2 different people right around the same time, exact same search, exact same engine?
Go build brand. That's how you battle it. You can't control the technology, and like in SEO Shadowlands, there are villains that are trying to say things like, well, we can hack it by creating listicles. So you can go out and say, hey, these companies, these firms, these podcast networks, here's the 10 best, and you're listed at number 1 across those. And the way the technology has worked is that could impact that. But again, and this is the part that's the same. This is the part that we talked about in SEO as well. And that is, if you're aiming at trying to trick the machine today, you're not aligned with where the people who are tweaking the machine are trying to go. And so, look, spam, SEO spam, it works until it doesn't. GEO spam, listicles, and all this other stuff that people are trying to do. Reddit astroturfing. The people that are actively twisting the levers, I guess twisting the knobs, you don't twist the lever, they're trying to mitigate the impact of those techniques. And so, this is what we've talked about forever, is that you can try to hack your way into it, and it might work for a short period of time. But if you're trying to build a long-term sustainable business that people actually want to work with, you've got to do things that motivate people and inspire people to say positive things about you all over the web. And so, this concept of digital PR, it's not really all that new. I think if you're really going to twist my arm, that there's kind of two things that I think about. One is that perhaps some of the emphasis, the historical emphasis on links in a purely LLM-based system might not be as impactful. But the other thing I'll remind people, Google is not, even in AI mode, it's still grounded in search results. And so there still is the impact of historical SEO on GEO. And the second thing is I think there's some things you can do from a retrievability standpoint with the content on your site. We talk about this a lot, being more direct and explicit, because again, these machines, they're just looking for language patterns. And they don't read a page the same way that a search spider would crawl and index a page. And so I think it's good practice to be a little bit more explicit early on. Question and answer style content on your site, being very direct with what a page is about. There are some other things we get into the technical, but if you're talking about the heavy lifting is doing stuff so that people around the web are talking positively about your business, recommending your business, saying they had a great experience with your business. That's what I would encourage folks to combat it with.
Captain Advocate, anything else to add to that?
Oh, he's right. So, there's one, Gyi is correct. This is a digital PR game. It is not, and like all PR, it is very difficult to measure the impact of, okay? It's not things like mentions in Forbes or something like that. It is difficult to mention. What's missed by every single law firm and almost every single marketing agency is the presumption that if there's something PR-y to talk about, right? So most of you in law firms you're not worth it. Like, there's nothing to talk about. There's no trumpet to blow because, is that a metaphor? I don't know if that's there's nothing to trumpet about because you're not worthy
I think
of
you're
it.
forgetting about super lawyers.
But take that as a crazy example. So now but this is fascinating. I call this superlative marketing internally. I haven't said that out loud, but think about how large language models work and then look at the things that actually impact. When you actually do run those queries and you run them 100 or 1,000 times, you'll start to see these superlatives actually performing fairly well. So this is a thing, and it's because of the language model. So just think about a couple things. You have super lawyers, you have best lawyers, right?
Lawyers.
Both of which have these superlative type names. Gyi mentioned the listicles. You have Avo, which literally is built on rating lawyers on a scale of 1 to 10. Think about a computer trying to process language. These things are processing language for you, right? There's a reason it's not called the pretty good lawyers, right? Because no one's looking for the pretty good lawyers list. So you have to, just even super lawyers alone, it is showing up more frequently than it ever has before. Avo was resurrected because of AI, right? It was a dying directory, this whole legal directory superlative thing. But semantically, including those superlatives, that has an impact, right? And you see that in the results when you spend way too much time like Gyi and I do looking at these results. And so, and this is what I mean by most of you don't have anything PR worthy. Most of you don't belong in super lawyers. Most of you don't have a 10 on Avo. Most of you don't belong in best lawyer. How do you get to a point where that's what you have earned? And that's just like the legal superlative crap. Now we want to talk about within your practice area, what makes you best within your market, within Chattanooga. Why do people know about you? All of these things that make you press worthy. Superlatives are a part of it. But there's other elements to this too that the vast majority of law firms just don't even it's not even in there. It's not there. It's not even a consideration set. That's where you have to start.
I think I'm going to start a new podcast just called the Superlative Lawyer Show. And I'll have him on and I'll just say, hi, Super Ben Johnson. You are a really, really great lawyer in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's right.
You are the best divorce lawyer in Chattanooga County. And so, it sounds like to me like the LLMs love these superlatives.
Breaking news.
Part of it.
Proximus is now super best Proximus.
We talked about we've got the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit coming up. We're going to be at the PILMA Super Summit, both of us, coming up. And so Gyi was like, why don't we call the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Super Duper Conference, right? The The semantics, like, this is how this is working. It's an element, right? It's not the only thing, but it is part of it.
And in the Shadowlands, what has happened is because people have started to recognize this phenomenon, you can now buy from Martindale Avo their Authority Foundation package, which includes full network visibility, dynamic AI profile content, performance and insights, client conversion, and off-network retargeting.
What was it? Dynamic AI what?
Dynamic AI profile content.
What the fuck is that?
Let's schedule a demo and find out.
We should do that, dude.
First up, the GEO Guru. This villain moves fast, too fast. Before the market understands the shift, before the tools settle, before the evidence has had time to show up, the GEO Guru arrives with a new promise and a shiny label on some old confusion. The GEO Guru does not need real expertise. He just needs to sound sure of himself. Proximus? Or super duper awesome Proximus? What are people getting wrong about GEO right now in the rush to talk about AI search?
Well, one of the most common pitches that I see in the GEO Shadowlands is this idea of LLM TXT, and we talked about the listicles. But essentially, and again, I think you said this in the intro to this chapter, this is not new stuff. That what they're selling is uncertainty, right? They're selling, I know a thing that you don't know. And so, and if you try to double click into that, you come up with these kind of made up things. And again, like an LLM TXT. So that's a text file that lives on your site that is intended to educate the LLM about content on your site. And I'm like, look, it's a nice to have, but there is no unified LLM TXT protocol like there is for robots protocol. And so again, the GEO Guru is taking advantage of this lack of information, this lack of education. It's putting a new wrapper on this idea of showing up as a response. And it's purely based on the fact that this is new, right? It's riding the AI hype train is what's going on, put simply, in my opinion.
And it makes us sound smart because we say stuff like LLM.txt and people are like, ooh. And then you're like, and then we'll schema it for you. And they're like, ooh, we should do both of those things. Quickly. Lots of them. Let's have 3 schemas, right? Like, it just, they don't understand. And I mean, the LLM.txt file is such a SEO, it's an SEO language spoken in the GEO world, right? And it just doesn't translate. It doesn't.
Captain Advocate, what are the biggest red flags that an agency that is claiming GEO or AI search expertise, but they haven't actually earned it?
I'm going to default back to claiming expertise. This is moving so fast. We are living in, we have moved into, and this is not just AI optimization. This is also SEO. We're moving into this place. Look at the rapid changes in the SERPs right now. They're changing all the time. The experimentation is constant and permanent. And so we need to live in a world where you are constantly reproving yourself and you are constantly needing to change tactics. And this is really important in not putting all of your eggs in one marketing channel. There's an evolution of what's going on. It used to be 10 blue links, and then it was ads, and then it was local kicked off ads, and then we had LSAs, and now it's all of these things shuffled every day, every week. Maybe not every day, but every week. And so I think the claim that I got it, like I've got this figured out. You don't have it figured out for tomorrow, dude. You just don't, right?
I mean,
yes, you don't have it figured out for today. Yeah.
So here's Dario Amodei, the guy who created Anthropic, right? People outside the field are often surprised and alarmed to learn that we do not understand how our own AI creations work. So the guy who's making this stuff doesn't know how it works, but the GEO bro does. Sundar Pichai from Google. There is an aspect
I was just looking for this.
We call, all of us in the field call it as a black box. You don't fully understand. That's the guy who's the head of Google.
John
Mueller, go
Mueller,
ahead.
this month, literally said, to me, when someone self-declares themselves an SEO guru, it's extremely obvious sign that they're a clueless imposter.
Here's
Like,
Sam
so-
Altman from OpenAI. We certainly have not solved interpretability, meaning we don't know how it works.
So I want to go back to something that I've heard both of you say, like ecosystem, everywhere, PR, everything. Like understanding, and that's something that I have been really on and trying to build with what I'm doing here is ecosystem. You know, we started off as a podcast production company and distribution. And then now it's, you know, what we say is we are an authority ecosystem with podcasting at its center. Because we've begun to understand that you just, like you said, it's no longer, you know, the clear text or the backlinks or the, you know, keyword stuffing or all these other things. And now it's just updated with other things, like you said, the LLM.text and all of these other things. But what I'm hearing from both of you consistently is stop trying to guess and start doing what you know you should be doing anyway, which is producing good quality content and then having people appreciate it and talk about it and rave about it. And that's what you can do. If I was to sum up the conversation thus far, would that be a fair statement? Am I missing anything important?
I mean, look, and I, you know, Conrad and I, because we are so immersed in this, we are particularly trying to simplify the message because we want to push back on the GEO gurus. Like, there are some things you can do to make your content more retrievable. There's some things you can do to assess your own content. You know, Google has a whole helpful, reliable content guideline with individual bullet points about how to assess your content. So what I'm trying to articulate is, yes, it's unlock your expertise, publish your expertise in all these different places, but not all content is created equally, right? Content that is providing original research and analysis, original thinking, that is associated with your name in a byline with a link back to a author bio. Like, there are some things you can do to help the machine, to feed the machine, as Conrad and I like to say. And so it's not just saying, like, just create more content. You want to be mindful about it. But I think that at every step of the way, you should be assessing what you're doing in terms of, like, am I adding something new? Am I adding some unique experience that I had in my professional journey? Because that's the quote-unquote information gain. You know, to make it simple, historically, car accident lawyers, they would everybody posts 10 things to do after a car accident, right? And there's millions of pages on law firm websites indexed in Google on 10 things to do after a car accident. There's nothing unique about those. They mostly are going to say a bunch of the same things. What can you say? What can you publish? What can you create? What can you podcast that's unique, that's sharing your experience, that demonstrates a deep understanding of the topic you're talking about? So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there because I don't want people to walk away from this thinking, oh, well, these guys just said, like, make more stuff. Because it's not just make more stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We talk about content generation a lot. The missing piece of content generation is distribution, right? So many people are, like, focused on, like, take social media, for example. You need to publish once a day. That's great. Fine. Publish once a day. But spend 80% of the time that you spend on social media in getting more distribution, not in writing the content, right? And we focus, we like, as agencies, we like delivering you tangible stuff, like a Facebook post or a blog or a podcast, whatever it might be. Those are tangible things. The hard part and the important part is the distribution and elevation of that content. That's why digital PR is really important. That's why we say digital PR. It's not just the message, it's how do we get the message out. That becomes part of the magic that I think is often missed. We say content. Think about just simple distribution on Facebook. Your average Facebook post gets to about 1 to 3% of your Facebook followers, okay? And your average Facebook post gets about 95% of all of its distribution from within your own follower network, right? So you're missing everyone who doesn't know you. You have to think about the distribution. Otherwise, you don't really exist. So the content's important, but it's 20. It's on the Pareto approach. It's less than 20%. 80% plus of your time needs to be working on distribution.
Next up, we fight the credit snatcher. Now, this one is older and meaner because the credit snatcher does not create much. It just collects credit. Branded search claims it. Referrals claims it. Word of mouth claims it. The reputation you built before they ever arrived, you guessed it, claims it. That's its trick. If something good happens, it reaches for the medal. Captain Advocate, what are the most common ways that agencies claim credit for growth that they did not really create?
There's two abhorrent elements of this. Two most nefarious and abhorrent elements of this. The first one is Google Business Profile. Google Business Profile, typically people will know about a firm through a variety of different things, and they will use Google Business Profile as a phone number lookup. So SEOs have been forever claiming competency because they're gathering we put on a tracking number on your Google Business Profile, and look at all this business, all this up and to the right that we're creating. It has nothing to do with Google Business Profile. Google Business Profile, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, is lead capture. Lead capture is not marketing lead generation. It is capture, right? And so Google Business Profile is one of the most common ways that agencies overclaim attribution. The other one that's even grosser is agencies that run branded and non-branded search for pay-per-click will munge those two things together because your cost per click for a branded term is really low compared to your cost per click for a non-branded term. And what they do is they put those two things together and they make it look like they're generating all this business. At its worst case scenario, they're only running, you're spending $10,000 on pay-per-click advertising. They're only running branded search, which generates a ton of conversions because it converts at a very high level. They only have to spend $1,000 to make that happen. They pocket the $9,000 on top of the 20 or 25 or 30% fee that they're charging you to manage this stuff. That's really gross, and don't for a minute think that doesn't happen.
Now the problem compounds because these monsters work together. One uses new language to sound advanced. The other uses unclear reporting to sound effective. That's how a business gets cornered. Sold the future, then billed for results that no one can clearly tie back. Proximus. What does it look like when GEO and AI search hype start setting expectations that the actual strategy can't deliver on?
You start feeling very suspicious about the tens of thousands of dollars a month you're spending on GEO and all this stuff. And then you look at your P&L and there's no new business coming in. And you ask your guru about what's happening, and they show you a visibility report that is based on synthetic prompts. And they say, look, your business shows up all the time for these synthetic prompts that we've created with this tool. So we don't know why you're not experiencing growth on your side of it, because we're doing our job. And then you fire them.
This is where things get clearer. One problem shows up in the language, another shows up in the reporting, or you just fire them.
Or you go out of business because you spent all of your money on prompt tracking.
But, this is thematically, all this up and to the right garbage, right? And you're like, the phone's not ringing, and your agency is showing you up and to the right over and over and over again. We've talked about this in the past. You want to show up and to the right, go show more website traffic, because website traffic is going to turn into business, right? No, not necessarily. In some cases, I can get a lot more website traffic for people that is adjacent to the law, that are never going to actually hire me, right? And so if I convince you that we need up and to the right on website traffic, I can create a bunch of content that is easier to win for, but no one is ever going to hire me. Or I get really desperate. I'm your agency. I say we need to get more website traffic, and it looks flat. Well, now I'm going to go buy 5,000 clicks out of China to make it look like we're doing a good job, right? That happens. Don't think that doesn't happen. It happens all the time.
We have one thing we talk about. We just say there's only one metric that matters. And that's retained clients. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I'm hearing from you. We have this intercompany joke called stats and data. I don't give a fuck about stats and data. That comes from a meeting when my team was asking for stats and data, and I literally said, stats and data? Stats and data? I don't give a fuck about stats and data. So while, yes, as marketers, we do care about that, at the end of the day, the thing that really matters is retain clients for our clients. And yes, we should show indicators along the way, the journey, the things that happen, the things that we move people along that client journey. But we can't just show a bunch of graphs and look at how many downloads and look at how many visits. And they're going, I had 4 calls last month and 3 of them were from my mom. Incorrect attribution, the credit snatcher. So,
that's right. No, and to your point, it's about relevant journeys, right? It's not all the journeys. It's not the journeys of all the bots and click farms on the web. We don't need those journeys in our... That's just noise. That's not signal. The relevant journeys, and again, I encourage folks to enrich their data as best they possibly can, whether it's with intake data, and Conrad and I talk a lot about quantitative and qualitative intake data. Ask folks how they heard about you, where they went to look for you. But those relevant journeys that start with, to your point, retained clients. In other contexts, maybe it's qualified leads. Look at those journeys and try to understand those journeys with as much data as you possibly can. But it's operating backwards, right? It's starting with the business data and then enriching it with marketing data, not starting with marketing data and then slapping high fives because you got whatever that leading indicator is.
now we stop diagnosing and we start fighting back. Because in the SEO Shadowlands, the monsters feed on confusion. And the businesses that beat the GEO guru and the credit snatcher ask better questions. Questions that expose bluffing. Questions that expose stolen wins. Questions that make weak strategy run out of places to hide. Proximus, what are 1 or 2 questions a business owner can ask to tell whether an agency actually understands modern search and AI search?
How will we segment between brand and non-brand? How will you help us understand how people are finding us because they were referred to us versus someone that's doing a category search, whether it's, best podcast network or best law firm? Help us understand the differences between those. How will you help us understand how these front-end marketing metrics that you're talking about are translating to new business for us, both in terms of legal context, new clients, new customers, whatever your business is, new qualified consultations? Let's define what that success looks like at the front, and not in terms of visibility, rank tracking, traffic. Right away, because the folks that don't know, they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to hide in the Shadowlands. They have to be able to answer those questions, and if they can't, then I think you've unmasked them, those villains.
Captain Advocate. When an agency comes to you claiming all these great results, what should you ask them before actually trusting those numbers?
I think the question becomes, and this is a shift in the market, and it is a early shift in the market. Whose dashboard are we working from? Okay, and I think this goes back to, this is a change, and Gyi and I just recorded on this, and I'm proactively working on changing this with many of our clients. What typically happens, DM, is the agency delivers its dashboard of up and to the right, at the end of a month, or maybe at the end of a quarter, and they tell you that they're doing a good job. They've turned in the homework. And you're sitting there looking at your Lawmatics account, and you're like, well, the phone's not ringing, so what's with the up and to the right? You cannot sit on the same side of the table if you are reading off of 2 different dashboards. Put differently, a man with 2 watches never knows what time it is. And you end up arguing over whose data is more accurate or more representative of how the business is doing, right? It's stupid. The question I would want to ask, or the question that I would want to know is, how much are you sitting on the same side of the table as your client, which means you're reading from the same dashboards? How deep are you into your client's internal dashboards, right? Because that means you're reading from the same page. That means that you're not arguing about how well we're doing, because you're literally reading off the same script, right? That's what I would like to see. The agency stuff that's always up and to the right, by the way, we do this. We send out a report at the end of every month, right? And often it's up and to the right. But more and more and more with our better clients, the clients with whom we have long partnerships, the clients who are growing the most, they want us in their Lawmatics account, right? They want us there because they know what
need you in that.
they need you.
Lawmatics account.
They do, because like think about this. In Lawmatics, like now I can tell whether or not someone turned into a consultation, right? So I know that like all of that garbage traffic that I'm sending you isn't turning into consultations, right? I know that. We both know that because we're looking at the same watch, right? That becomes really powerful.
In the SEO Shadowlands, we see the same trick again and again. Guesses presented as expertise. Someone else's momentum presented as performance. Hope that the client is too busy, too overwhelmed, or too impressed to ask harder questions. But today we cut through it. We broke it down, we challenged the claim, we made the proof show up, and we named the monsters. The GEO guru that sells expertise before it's earned it, the credit snatcher that claims every good outcome is from them. And we land on something every business owner in the Shadowlands needs to hear. A new term is not a strategy. An acclaimed win is not an earned one. I'm Bam Man, and this is BAM, the show conquering sameness, one platform at a time.